too. Wow.
Yeah, suicides have been reported to be increasing, particularly amongst the young, and I think also in the elderly population. Can you describe what might drive someone to consider this step? I know there are reasons of depression and so on, but maybe if people knew what the issues were, they might be able to prevent it better.
Sure. Well, there are a few really important things to take into consideration. First of all, when we're treating someone or we're interacting with someone who we suspect might have suicidal ideation, thinking, or
In English. Suicide.
ideation meaning thinking.
They're thinking about
committing
suicide.
Yeah, if they're thinking about committing suicide.
They have
or
a plan.
Yes. The important thing is to remember that their safety is our number one concern.
Sure.
We do a thorough suicide assessment, which really includes a number of things. First of all, have they had a suicide attempt in the past? Do they have plan? Do they have intent? But not only that, hopelessness or helplessness, the feeling of not having any control of their life, and they're sort of boxed in, and that's when this sort of comes about. Substances also impact it greatly.
We have a school suicide and violence prevention program that we provide for all the public schools here in town, and we also provide follow-up therapy here, and Phil's in charge of that program. So kids today, with the modern world and all the modern stressors that are associated with 24-hour TV and news cycles and things that they're seeing, constant traumas on TV, are being affected. And what program we use is the Erica's Lighthouse program, which is out of Loyola University. And what it does is it helps kids just talk about those feelings, and in the hopes of preventing suicides and school violence.
It sounds like you may be suspecting increased suicides coming from the issues of isolation, loss of jobs, not seeing a future. It might be beyond just the young people or the elderly, but the whole middle range of people should be careful.
Sure.
Also with the economic changes, you know, with the Great Depression, we saw many suicides happen. You know, but you add these additional stressors, and I've read 3 different articles that have said suicides have tripled during the 90 days of this pandemic.
Wow. Okay, it's a tough subject to leave because there's many issues with it. But my brother-in-law had PTSD after fighting in Europe in World War II. He was 17 years older than I am. But he never dealt with it. He never dealt with the PTSD. He died when he was 91. Evidently, the problem has been around a long time and going by different names, shell shock, whatever. Today, it's recognized not only in veterans, but in first responders, in all sorts of people who've experienced trauma, accidents, watching this poor man being killed, George Floyd. That's pretty traumatic, I mean, I must say. Can you give us an idea, how do you deal with people with PTSD?
Well, I could tell you that I'm a victim of PTSD. My son was killed 2 days after his 16th birthday by a drunk driver. And we had to search for him because he was knocked off of a bridge. And we had to search for hours. So my family and I have therapy. So the reason I became the CEO of the Mental Health Association is because I've treated for 23 years people with mental and behavioral and physical health problems. And then I have one, and I thought the best way that I could help people is to show them that you can have PTSD and still function. And this is, helping people has actually been a treatment for me. I hate to say that I'm using my job for my own therapy, but it does work out that way for me. But Phil could give you a more clinical answer than that. That's just a personal answer.
Well, and I think it goes a long way. For your audience, I would just say, if you have trauma, or if you've even experienced trauma through another person, it's not something that you should try to handle on your own. You should seek out help from your family physician, mental health therapist, psychologist. A lot of times it includes just not the individual, but the family unit. So there, with regard to the type of therapy that's most effective, that's what they call kind of empirically supported. Typically, it's cognitive behavioral therapy, and we do a lot of that here at the Mental Health Association.
Now, we've talked about a lot of very important things, and I want to ask you now if I've missed things that you want to be sure to get out. So the floor is yours now. It's open.
Well, I would just say, especially with COVID, it's important to remember that it compounds everything. So if you've had a mild issue, it's now a moderate issue. If you have had poor coping skills, you might be down to 0 to none. If you've had an issue in your relationship, it's probably a real problem now. So these are unprecedented times, and if you haven't sought out therapy or help in the past, now is really the time to do it.
And what we've seen here, in addition to the other things recently, when the 2 stimulus checks went out in Indian River County, there were 29 people who had to be treated for overdoses with Narcan by the police. Last year, that's just during the pandemic. Last year, for the entire year in Indian River County, only 26 people needed to be treated. So what we've seen is a lot of people coming in here now that are seeking detoxification from alcohol and drugs. Substance abuse is a way that we tend to sometimes deal with these situations. A lot of the guys who did have shell shock from World War II, Vietnam, Korea, also dealt with that by self-medicating with alcohol, because they didn't know what it was. And the final thing I would like to say is, remember, it's okay to get help, and we're here to help all of you out there. So there are other places just like us in your communities. In Indian River County, if you have a problem, just call the Mental Health Association, 772-569-9788, or take a look on our social media, mhairc.org.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for both of you appearing and helping our viewers to better understand mental health issues. Now, you could take a minute and explain the turtle.
Well, basically, the turtle represents what we think of the mental health process. When you first start and find that you have a mental health problem, you're like a baby sea turtle. And when you're born on the beach, but you have to find your way all the way back to the ocean, and you have to get past a lot of pitfalls and a lot of predators. And mental health is a lot like that. So what we did before I came here, a long time ago, about 8 years ago, was they had these turtles painted by local artists, and they put them up for sale, and they were able to raise $600,000 for the Mental Health Association, which all went into treating people with mental health problems. This turtle is a special one. His name is Neptune, because he has on the little sand dollars that are all around him is the name of the artist that painted a turtle and the name of the people who bought the turtle. This turtle was painted by Barbara Sharp, one of our hometown special artists. And Neptune is still available, but we keep him in here in our conference room.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much again. This is Mike Bass for Targeting Your Health. Thank you for being with us.